This is Train to Perform, the undisputed alpha podcast in training, fitness, and sports performance. Here, you'll develop your skills with the cold, hard facts in fitness, sports performance, recovery, and nutrition. Real, tried and true, evidence-based facts that have been proven to move you faster, move you stronger, and move you forward. Now, here's your host of Train to Perform, Julian Sisman.
And welcome back to the Train to Perform podcast. Thanks again for listening. Today we had Lee Taft. He is a strength and conditioning coach, mainly focusing on tennis. He's been in the field now for 30 some years, as he said, maybe actually 20. And he started out as a PE teacher, had a little thing on the side. The PE really helped him develop his business to really get him to where he is now. He is in Florida working with mostly tennis, but me and him talk a lot about speed, and he's known as the quote-unquote speed guy, and that's really why I wanted him on my podcast, because I love to talk about speed, and it seems to be a topic or something that a lot of soccer players want to get better at, and so we talk ideas and strategies, and there's a lot of things you can take away from this podcast. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Again, please rate, please share, and thank you again. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going well.
Yeah.
How about you? Everything's good? And
yeah, can't really complain, man. Like, just work.
Yeah.
trying to, I got into this probably way after you. I don't know, how long have you been sort of doing speed, agility, strength?
This is my 31st year.
Yeah, so I'm like a quarter of less than that. Like a lot less.
Yeah.
I'm like probably 6 years in. And I learn things every day.
We all do.
Business, what to do as far as like training goes. And it's like, I swear it's like an ever evolving situation, which is unique, because it doesn't get stale. So it's really nice. And you just kind of have to like play day by day.
Yeah. You got to create the pathway that you want, and then that makes it easier for you to know if you're getting off it. You know what I mean? So those are the things when I was young and first opened my first facility, I didn't know. I mean, I knew how to train. I knew, at least at that time, I thought I knew how to train, back in my first facility was in 94. And so I learned over time is once I created the vision and where I wanted to go, it just made things so much easier, because then I knew if I was off that path, and as I've gotten older, I can eliminate a lot of fluff because it's not where I want to go. So it's what I wish I would have known when I was younger, first in it. So
it's funny you say that, because the more and more, like I said, like the more and more I get it, like think about it, the less I want to focus on like just a ton of different athletes, and more on like sort of my background, which is like soccer kids.
Soccer, yeah.
And I mean, I'm in an area where it's very popular. It's, kids, work, the goal is always, one or the other. It's like, I want to at least maybe play college or maybe play pro. Like,
yeah.
So it's interesting, but it's fun. I mean, I enjoy it. So I can't complain.
Yeah, I can tell you this. If you did niche and specialize, your life would get so much easier, and you would probably grow a lot faster. I'm we just moved to Florida about a month ago.
Yeah.
A little over a month ago. And I started my career in tennis.
Okay.
And I was in 1991, I was at Bollettieri's Tennis Academy as a speed coach. And it's now called IMG, but it wasn't that at that time. And I've always been in tennis, but I used to train everybody. I train all athletes, and I still do to an extent. But since I've gotten back, I have dove 100% into the world of tennis and really put my focus there. I have grown more in the past 4 weeks, 5 weeks than I have over the last 5 years. And it's just because all my focus is on one thing and growing all the little things of that. So it just makes your marketing easier. It makes your research easier. It makes your training programming easier. It cleans it up a lot. Not that you can't do the other stuff and train the other, but if you just focus in one area, and if those people come to you, then good. But, and then if you get staff, you can say, hey, you guys take care of the basketball, the football, and the baseball, softball, whatever. My focus is soccer, but that's for you to decide. But I'm telling you, from a business standpoint, it really makes a difference.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I totally, I definitely agree with you as far as that goes, because since I have been like just focusing on soccer, let's say in the past, like 2 to 3 months, things have changed dramatically myself.
Yeah, good.
It makes it total. I totally agree with you. So, really, like, how'd you get into, what you're doing? Like, you're known as, they say you're the speed guy. And I'll be honest with you, like, I've been following you for a long time. I'm really close with Matt Johnson. So like, I've talked to him about you a couple times. And I mean, I've been following you for a while as far as like speed, multi-directional work goes. And I, try to incorporate some of that stuff, especially in soccer, because it's for sure multi-directional sport.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of, fill me in on that, and kind of, I just want to learn what kind of brought you to where you are.
Absolutely, yeah. So my degree was phys ed. So when I graduated college, I played college basketball, college tennis, graduated, immediately went right into teaching phys ed, and I was coaching 3 sports. I coached football, basketball, and track. And then after 2 years, so in 91, I left teaching and coaching to go get my master's. And that's what led me to Bollettieri's, so part of my master's in sports science was I did my mentorship in strength and conditioning. And that's how it all started. Even though when I was the high school teacher and coach, I was kind of their de facto strength coach. I used to work with athletes on the side and did stuff. But that was when I really dove in full speed. So that's kind of how it all started. And then I went back into teaching for a little bit, just for some security when we got married and had kids, but I never stopped my business. I always had my business running through that time as well. And just over the years, I've owned 5 facilities at different times, different locations, and I've done a lot of training. And then as you get older, what happens is you end up coaching coaches. And so I become more of a consultant now and work with a lot of teams and organizations. So yeah, that's kind of how it all transpired.
Awesome. So when it comes down to speed, like, when you break it down, like, what's one of the, especially, in the game, in any game really, like linear speed is always talked about. Like when you coach it, when you, especially with kids, younger kids, all they talk about is like, I want to get faster. And then, my response is typically like, okay, we got to work on, certain speed, technical work, form, things like that. Speed is not like, okay, we're going to do like hundreds and 200. That's totally different. We're talking about like, 20s, 10s, 20s, 30s type of things. Yep. When you educate kids on that kind of stuff, like what's your go-to as far as, the first few sessions or first few weeks?
Yeah. So if we can start them out with linear speed, it's just easier. It's more accepted by them. They get it, right? Even though they may be a youth soccer player, they could be a youth volleyball player, so they do multi-directional, but training it isn't as common to them as linear speed. Yeah. So if we can get them to understand position, so nice tall posture, okay, good position, how to just create some good alignment, and then working on drills such as marching, skipping, A-runs, snap skips, things that cause them to hit the appropriate positions with their limbs. So if I have an athlete do a march, I can slow down and have them feel the position I want them in a little bit longer, right? Because if I have them run, they go through that position so quick, I don't know if they feel it yet. So we can get them to slow down a little bit and then gradually build in the speed. And then we can teach them that if I want to get my leg from behind my body to the front of my body, I can get it there if it's really short. So we start talking about shortening levers. So bend the knee quite a bit. Pull that heel right underneath your butt so that your knee comes out in the front close to parallel to the ground. So now it's in a great position to shoot down. So we can walk them through those things, then we can build the speed, and then we can go to like these snap skips. A snap skip is basically kind of like an A skip, except for you're always on one leg and you literally just snap and switch. As we're in A skip, there's a time when both legs touch the ground, and then you go back up. Those are good for force production into the ground and driving the leg down. But if you want to be central nervous system driven and getting that cross extensor reflex, you've got to start with one high, one low, and then switch them. Just like scissors, they go in opposite directions. And so just by teaching that stuff, all of a sudden they start to feel like how important it is to be in the right positions. But you got to be patient, because at first it's going to feel awkward because it's new. And especially younger kids are like, I don't know, this feels really funny, and they don't like doing it. Well, I'm like, this is how we get better. It's the process of failing your way to success, and that's okay. That's what it should feel like.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think I over the time since I started, it's kind of gone from like doing a bunch of these like random drills to like really breaking it down and kind of like break down the whole everything into like different segments and then kind of like build it back up. So it's been, some of the stuff that you've put out there, especially through Athletes Acceleration, the speed course that you have, it helps a lot.
Thank you.
So like, when does it come, when does like band, like resisted stuff come into play? Like, is that something that you find very helpful for them to, like what do you use that for, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's misunderstood. We look at bands and we say it should only be a progression. Well, that's not always true. It's true sometimes, because if I can take a young athlete, and especially if they're not very strong, and I can put a band around them, and we're talking about a moderate intensity. We're not talking about a big, heavy band. We're just talking about something that their body senses they need to apply more force because of this new tension. So when I do that, and often I'll do that on day one, because what it does is it tells me how they manage pressure. Okay, so I put a band around their waist and I start tugging on it and they start running away from me. It lets me know where their energy leakages are, right? But it also lets them know, hey, for me to, kind of go at the speed I want to go, I need to go a little bit harder. And so sometimes we can trick the nervous system into working a lot harder where I can't do it without any external stimulus, because they don't know how to do that. An experienced runner would know how to maybe reach different levels of intensity. A younger kid they just run, right? So if we put a band around them, now all of a sudden they have to apply a little bit more force. And what we find is they tend, especially for acceleration, they tend to apply force in much better position. So they drive down and back much better, because the band would be very synonymous with having them run up a hill. They naturally lean, they naturally drive down and back, they naturally get better leg separation. Those are all qualities we want. So sometimes if I do that on day one, I can actually help them. But the other part of it is, Julian, the band actually allows me to control their deceleration, which maybe we haven't worked on yet. So if I put a band around your waist and say, start running, when you go to slow down, well, I've got half your weight in my hand because I got 10 attention. So I can actually save their mechanics on decelerating and take some weight from it, especially if they're a younger athlete or an older athlete that's come off an injury. I can do things because they get hurt during the deceleration a lot of times. Yeah. I can take the weight away from them by using a band. So I'll use it right off a lot of times. When I want to progress it, then I get a little bit heavier and heavier, or maybe more strict with how hard I pull it. That's how I progress it.
Okay. And when you do different like runs, so you would resist band through like skips, marches, things like that for them to like slowly understand that the pressure that they gotta put into it versus just like a sprint. Some people
you can. Yep.
Yeah.
You can use it for anything. So even if you're like right now, a lot of people are struggling because they can't get out. They can't go to the performance facility depending on where they are in the country, right? Mm-hmm. So if they had a band, if they were able to go to Walmart and buy a couple of inexpensive bands and attach them to their door or something, they could actually do it in place. Even though it's done in place, it's still going to give them a little bit of a tilting reflex because the band will make them feel like that. Otherwise, the band wins and it pulls them back. So there's so many benefits to using band training, but here's the other part we have to understand. If you have an athlete that's struggling with ground contact time, in other words, they're really squishy and they kind of sit on the ground too long, using a band might not be the best option all the time. You might use it on occasion to drive more strength, but if you want them off the ground quicker, if you're going to use the band, you might have to assist them, but you only assist them out of the first couple steps so that momentum can now be their friend and help them go. Because a heavy-footed person resisted becomes a heavier-footed person. But if you do other strategies like a light assistance for the first couple steps, then you can assist them get through the motion easier, and the central nervous system really likes that.
Yeah. When you talk about ground contact time, what kind of things do you use as far as like that? Because obviously when sprinting, the quicker you're off the ground, the quicker you're off the ground, and the more force you can put in that step, quicker you'll be, or faster you'll be. So, like, what are some strategies that you use to implement in your programs, especially in the beginning? Because like that's typically where like, especially new kids that are coming into the gym, probably never done any type of training before, probably only have done their sport training. Yeah. And if they had like speed and agility, it's mostly like,
yep,
you know what I mean?
Yep, yeah, I do.
So what kind of stuff? Because, I notice that with a lot of kids that I work with, and, I do a lot of like, plyos, like a single leg stuff, things like that. But just kind of curious as to like what kind of stuff you implement into your program.
Yeah, great. So from a starting point, I usually start them bilateral at the initial just to see how they handle that because it's lighter, right? Then you got two legs working versus the one. Mm. So we'll do things such as what I call bounce drills or pogos, right? So we just can place your hands on our hips and we kind of stiffen up the legs a little bit, very, very little knee bend because we're trying to demonstrate through the foot and the ankle using the lower leg primarily. And we bounce, right? We bounce, almost like jump roping. We bounce, and the higher we go, the longer it takes to get off the ground. So I'll tell the kids, just think about jumping quick. Be a ping pong ball rather than a heavy medicine ball, right? I want that real quick bounce. So they'll find their height, and then after that, we'll put them on like a low box, or it could be like a 45-pound Olympic plate. Those are about 2.5, 3 inches thick, depending on the type of plate you have. So if they stand on that, almost like they are a an Olympic high diver standing backwards, ready to do, ready to dive backwards off, how they get right on the balls of their feet. So if you do that, and then they jump off backwards and bounce right back up as quick as they can. So they're little bounces. Yep. So all of a sudden, they've added a little bit of height, but they've also added the element of having to tilt and coordinate their body lean, because if they lean backwards, when they land, they're going to jump away from the box or the plate. Yeah. So they learn to load in dorsiflexing through the foot, the toe, and the ankle. And then what we do is we start putting multiple boxes. Okay, so if I put 6 boxes in a row with enough space in between, they bounce on, bounce off, bounce on, bounce off. And now they're building momentum forward, and they're seeing how traveling over the ground changes the quickness of the jump. So it starts to get faster. Then what we can do is we can start to go to, like you were talking about, more of a single leg emphasis, but still have 2 legs. So if I took that same low box and I put my left foot on it and I put my right foot off it, my left foot is higher, my right foot's off, but my right foot's behind me, left's a little bit in front. I bounce and I switch. So it's just like you're cycling your feet. Now I'm starting to simulate what it's like to have a foot drive down and back behind me, and then the front foot is just a stabilizer. But most of the weight's going to be on that back foot. And I jump and I switch, but we're still emphasizing that same concept of the pogo jump initially, right? Real quick.
No, you're not really focusing on that vertical. You're focusing more on that quick off the box and off the ground.
Yeah, initially it's quick. It's maybe a little bit higher reps than we might typically go, because we're trying to build some tensile strength, some quality in the tissues. And then as we say, hey, you know what, they're getting faster. You can tell they're bouncing quicker, or maybe you time them. Then you can do what you just said. Now we can say, all right, now I want you to treat those jumps as if you have to get up in the air and touch the net, or, touch the backboard, or get above the goalpost, right? And now they start to really bounce. And if they do it and they look like they're really dead and they're driving too, then we say, okay, let's go back to these quick ones, and we gradually build it up, because maybe we've gone past their strength ability. So that's how we started. And then you can eventually start going to the single leg stuff. That's one of the drills I like in a ladder. If you took an agility ladder, the one thing that's good with that is it predetermines how far they're going to jump or hop. The boxes are only 18 inches, so that way you never have to worry about the athlete over jumping too far. They just say, hey, you got 10 boxes, hop on each foot all the way down, do the other foot coming back, and do it as quick as you can. Now you're starting to build a faster ground contact time, but nothing replaces the ground contact time of actually sprinting. So after you do those, have them finish with a couple short 10 to 20 meter sprints, and then they're gold.
Yeah. And kind of to sum that up, like when you do like sprint linear speed drills, like, over the course of like, say like, a 6-week program, like what is your sort of like progression as far as like reps? Are you, are you like, is it a ton of volume? I mean, I don't know how. It also could probably be based on how often the kid is working with you, things like that. So there's a lot of variables.
Yeah. So if we're going to work, let's say our training session today, let's say it's an hour, and we're going to include some strength training. We might do a little bit of 5 minutes of conditioning at the end, maybe something fun or whatever. And we got our warm up. And so let's say we're going to allot ourselves maybe 20 minutes of speed, 15 to 20 minutes of speed or whatever. And that's primarily our focus. Once we're warmed up in the early week, okay, or the early phase. So let's say phase 1 to 2, weeks 1 to 2. We're going to focus on short flies. So we're going to give them about a 5-yard buildup, and we're going to let them sprint once they hit the 0 mark. So 5 yards, hit the 0, and then they're going to go another 10. Pretty short. They're not going to go fast enough to really cause any hold muscles. They just haven't gone fast enough yet, right? We can really work some good technique on that. And we might do maybe 2 sets of 3 to 4 reps. So I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4. Take a little break, maybe do some mobility, maybe work on something quick, and then come back, do it again, and see if we can emphasize something new. And then when we get to weeks 3 and 4, we're probably going to either reduce the number of sets down to 1, maybe do 5 or 6 reps, but we're going to add a longer buildup. So now they're hitting that 0 after going 10 meters. So they go 10 meters, hit that 0, and then run the next 10 meters as fast. So now they got 20 meters, and we're going to time them. And we're going to see what that 10 looks like compared to what it looked like when they did the 5. Right now we can start to give them some excitement there. And we'll go about 5. We don't need to do too many overall, because we want to make sure that we make them go as fast as they can in every one, give them quality rest, and then get out of it, and then go do whatever else we're going to do.
Yeah.
If this is the only time I would change, if you were not going to do other stuff, like you were out on the track, you weren't going to do strength training, then I might get more volume in there. But again, I'm a big fan of Tony Holler. I believe in that. I've always been the type who feels like, you know what? Let's train hard, let's go home and rest hard, and let's come back and be able to do it again. And so we'll get those 5 to 6 quality reps in and then stop. Then when we get to weeks 5 and 6, now we're just going to expand the distance. If they're ready to pop up to 30 meters, so maybe we go a 10-meter build-up, and then we go a 20-meter sprint, and we're going to do anywhere from 4 to 5 of those as hard as they can, rest. But keep in mind, you are also working on all the A-series stuff, so A-march, A-skip, snap skip, A-runs. Maybe you're going to throw some wickets in there to work on front-side mechanics before they run. So you're going to build up volume and capacity anyway. But then when you're going full speed, that's when you hit it. So it's just in a nutshell. That's how I might do it with a young kid.
Cool. Yeah, so that seems to be like the kind of like where I live. Like I said, I followed you for a long time. I followed some other people, and I kind of take some of their programs.
Good.
And just kind of use the ideas. Again, I'm a firm believer in, it's not all about crazy volume. It's all about quality reps. And that's obviously the same sort of thing that we all preach as far as like strength training goes. Because your body will and learn how to do those bad reps, and you'll keep doing them if you don't do it right.
Yeah, that's right. And not to interrupt you, but I want to make a final point on that. I just was working on a project, actually before we get on the call. And one of the sections I wrote up on is I would much rather look at the end of the week or the end of 2 weeks and have a lot of cumulative volume over that 2-week period to gain a big capacity of learning that skill and getting better at it, versus crushing them in one day and then having them not be able to perform well for like 2 to 3 more days where they're really shot. So it just never made sense to me. Like, I would rather them, let's get a few today and a few tomorrow and a few the next day. And now by the end of the week, they've got just as much as you would have if you would have crushed them on Monday, but they won't be able to do anything again until Thursday of any value, right, or any speed. So that's always been my philosophy. Plus, I think it's safer.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, because it's one of those things, again, where, if they're running at full speed, which, you hope, if you just accumulate a crazy amount of volume in one session, like, they're going to be so sore, like, especially and like, you want to be able to train in 2 days or so, 48 hours from the day that you train. So like, killing them is not like, I personally have never done that. So like, I wouldn't really know. And some of the stuff I teach, I do myself to like kind of like know, to make sure that it's like good and the volume is good, and how it feels, just so I can
good
relate.
For you. I do the same.
Voice my opinion about it. Because kids are always going to have questions, because a lot of this stuff is new. So kind of transitioning to like, multi-directional stuff. I know you love this stuff because I literally see you do like some crazy stuff like that. I'm so like, how does he think of this? Because it's so useful. how important is it to you, like learning to decelerate and, obviously we talked about linear speed, how to get fast, but like how important is deceleration? Like, cause I think if you have the best brakes, being able to move, side to side is like, you'll be way quicker versus
That's
like
right.
you don't have good brakes.
Exactly. I'm telling you, if you don't have the brakes, you're in trouble because it just doesn't allow you to be able to accelerate in a new direction, right? Or be safe. But here's the misnomer that a lot of people have.
Mm-hmm.
Deceleration training is different than change of direction training or reacceleration. Now, we do have the element of decelerating, obviously, when we change directions, but the intent is not to decelerate, right? So when you're playing soccer and you're trying to get by me and you're trying to really push hard and get by dribbling to your right, and so I'm opening up, running next to you, and now you're trying to change directions quickly and cut to the inside of me. You're not thinking about stopping. You're thinking about accelerating in a new direction. You just have to happen to stop, right? You have to slow down. So when we train pure deceleration, which is important, it's critical, I believe it resembles more of the things that we want to do in the weight room. So the eccentric component of slowing down. So let's say we're doing a jump stop or a lunge stop or a lateral stop or whatever. And we do that drill and then we stop and we stop still, right? The angles for me to produce force to stop my body are different than the angles that I'm going to use to change directions because and when I stop my body going sideways, so if my angle is, 35 degrees, 45 degrees, something like that, well, it's probably going to have to be 5 to 10 degrees wider because now that angle doesn't just stop me, it restarts me in a new direction. So, and you're not just worried about your feet. You have to manage your mass and momentum of the upper body. So when I train deceleration, I make it clear to the athletes, we're trying to strengthen your tissues. We're trying to strengthen the signaling of your nervous system, your proprioceptive system to understand where you are in space. But when we're training change of directions, we're trying to elicit a really fast, stretch shortening response to be able to change that directions and get in and out really quick. Yeah. So that's the difference I have when I train the two.
So for the first part, so when you're saying the eccentric part, are you obviously you're working on, there's probably a phase or so of that when you're with weights. What type of, like, you were talking about like jump stop, like things like that. Like what type, are those just different like movements that you've sort of come up with that you're able to elicit like the different movements when you're, whatever sport you're playing? Is that what you're referring to? Okay.
Yeah. So if you're going straight ahead, a jump stop or a split step. Same, tennis player calls it a split step. Most other sports call it a jump stop. You just jump, parallel stance, kind of sit down into that stance, and it's a basic good athletic stance. Okay, that's a jump stop. Now, if I'm moving sideways and I want to stop, like a goalie going to the right and then all of a sudden having to stop, come back the other way, they would do what we would call just a lateral stop, okay? It's just like a shuffle stop, boom, and go the other way. Then we have a lunge stop. That would be like, almost looks like a bowler, right? Somebody bowling, they get that one leg out in front. It's kind of like that. It's a lunge stop. But we also have those going backwards and on angles. So we have different ones that we can train so the athlete understands how to manage their force and their weight. And then we just eventually take it and have different patterns go into a change of direction, which is different mechanics.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the type of things that you kind of do in the beginning of a session to kind of like prep, like, because like, pretty intense stuff right there that you're sort of coaching these kids or athletes.
It's good prep work. Yep. Good prep work. You can do it in the body of the workout based on what your workout is, but it's really good to hit those during that warm-up period. That way you can get them every day. Right? You can practice them every day.
And I mean, it's very similar to like the sprint stuff, you're probably not, going crazy on the volume. It's some of those things where it's just more of like you said, prep, sort of like movement prep type work. Like,
yeah. And think about it. If I had my athletes 3 times a week,
mm-hmm.
and I did 2 to 3 reps of those type of exercises every day, and I hit them in my warm-up, by the end of the week, I'm getting a lot of volume. And they're getting better because they're getting more exposure to those same things. We can add variation to them, but they're basically the same thing. And so I'm not overdoing it on any one day, but you look at the end of the week, you're like, holy cow, I've accumulated a lot of reps. And that's how they get better. It's the more reps, the better the skill acquisition.
And when you do and then kind of going into like more drill type work for like multi-directional stuff, are you doing like more short stuff, more like quick turns versus like long, like drill? Some of these people do these like 6-cone drills where they're just like shuffling. Is it more or less like, all right, we're going to teach the skill, we're going to work on the skill, and then we're going to do something where we're like against an opponent type thing, so trying to keep it game related?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm real big on the short burst because that's where players really accelerate to improve, right? So there's going to be times in certain sports like football or soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, where we're going to have to open up and run a little bit, right? We're going to have a little bit of distance, but real plays are made in those short, maybe I take one step to the right, cut, boom, back to the left, boom, take a shot, right? That's the kind of stuff. So I spend a lot of time in the 1 to 2 second burst or 3 to 5 second burst. So we're talking 1 to 10 meters or up to, we could be, again, 10 to 40 meters based on who the athlete is. So if we work in those time zones, or those time frames, we're really starting to focus on that explosive type training. And we couple a lot of those drills together. That's how we build the capacity, right? And plus, we know the kids are going to be playing anyway, so they're building longer duration drills anyway. Now, here's what's different with my training than a lot of people, and I just discovered this years ago, is when I start a training session after they've warmed up, I start with what I call the reactive tier system. It's a reactive drill. So I have them react right off. And it can be very low level, could be very just linear, could be lateral, could be whatever. I only do that a few times. But what it does is it tells me what kind of athletes I have today. How are they reacting? How are they moving? Then I go to the correctives, the drills, or if I want to put a band around them, or if I want to have them work on arm mechanics or leg mechanics, then we'll come back and we'll finish with some kind of maybe a tag or a mirror drill or whatever. And what it does is it allows me to make sure that athletes are zoned in from the very first drill, because you and I both know sometimes if you tell an athlete, say, all right, start over here on this line and run to the 10 when you're ready. Well, they kind of stroll up there, they get there, then they go. But if you and I stood next to each other and you had to react to me, so when I left, you had to go and match me, even on the first drill, it immediately gives a better emphasis on effort. And when I get good effort, I get to see flaws better or concrete patterns, really good patterns. And so a tier 1 is really easy. It's just, which direction you're going, you just don't know when. So a track athlete, right? They know they're going straight. They just don't know when the gun goes off. A tier 2 means they could go right, left, or forward, backwards, and they don't know when. They wait till either the partner goes or the coach gives them the command. Then you get to tier 3s, and a tier 3 is a mirror drill. So there's multiple change of directions. As for tier 1 and tier 2, there's no change of direction. It's just a reaction, go, and then you're done.
Yeah, see, I like to, very similar. It seems to be, like, obviously mine's kind of switched, but, that's good. I've never thought of it that way, kind of, because then you're able to, like you said, you're able to see where, what's going on with them at that moment versus like waiting to the end, sort of after working on some type of skill work.
Right.
was I gonna say? What like sort of brought you to like working with just tennis? Like, is it because where you live, or is it because, something that, is it because of your mentorship and just kind of stayed with it because you enjoyed it, or did you play?
Yeah. No, I did. I played growing up, played through high school, it's funny, I played 2 years in college, but when I transferred to the college I graduated at, Cortland State in New York, they obviously had basketball. I played there, but they didn't have men's tennis. They had women, so I couldn't play anymore. So I used to play on the side, and I played tournaments and all. But and then when I got into strength and conditioning, I started in tennis academies. I was in 2 different tennis academies, and then I went to University of Kentucky, and I worked with their men's team while I was there for a little bit. But when we moved here, I still consult and work with other sports and other athletes, but I wanted to just get back to my roots. I love tennis. I love training. And I think there's a really good place, a good niche for me to be able to bring a wider understanding of my methods, of how it's worked with many of the college and pro and high school athletes I've worked with in tennis. And so, and it just, what it does, it gives me a single focus, and that's helped me. It's helped me gain a lot of momentum when I'm just basically focusing on that area as my major work throughout a day, and all my research and I have a show called the Tennis Speed Show, and that allows me just to go after the tennis strength coaches, tennis coaches, performance coaches in tennis. So it just clears my mind, and I'm so much more productive that way. So that's kind of why.
Where is that show is it like a YouTube thing that you just broadcast?
Just launched it. Yeah, just launched it. Yep. We've had, actually today will be the second one. I've recorded multiple people, but they'll go out each week. So we just launched it when we got down here. We took some time, set it up, made a lot of my contacts. So I've got contacts around the world that we're reaching out to, and so the different people will be on the show. And yeah, so it'll be it's fun. It's a fun show, and it's about 30 minutes, and we just talk speed for tennis. That's really the focus.
I mean, what like really got you into like the whole speed game? Like, I mean, I know a lot of people enjoy like the strength, power, and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, like if you're fast and you can and quick, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how. I mean, yes, strength plays a role, but if you're, like I said, like I've seen it. I played against soccer players that are like don't look strong, believe me, and are so fast. Yeah, maybe some genetics plays a role, but
right.
Like what really brought you into like that whole niche sort of thing?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you're in tennis, but like you really got yourself into being.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because I started in college. First of all, I was always a quick athlete. I wasn't very big, but I was really quick. I played 4 sports in high school. My best attribute was I was fast. Okay, I was really, really quick. So it just interests me. So when I got in college, I actually started studying film on athletes moving, including myself. So I would watch how my feet moved when I guarded somebody in basketball, or how I moved in tennis. And I started to say, wow, I mean, that's so much different than everybody's teaching us. And I'm watching other athletes. And then I started to study older athletes, like back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and say, well, they did it too. So then I started to realize the central nervous system is telling us something. We're just not picking it up. Coaches are, they talk about the false step, and they talk about, can't cross your feet and you can't do. I'm like, yeah, but all the greatest athletes, that's what they do. That's a natural movement pattern. And there's a reason for that. So that's kind of how it came about. But the funny thing is, I love strength. Like I'm a big on strength training. I do a lot with it, but I put it in its place. Just like you said, when an athlete has these genetic gifts, I use strength to keep them healthy, make sure they're strong enough to perform at higher potentials if possible. but I don't treat them like a bodybuilder or a power lifter or an Olympic lifter.
Mm-hmm.
I treat them like an athlete that needs to benefit from some good fundamental strength training. And but I love that end of it. But it's funny. Someone years ago in an article called me the speed guy. And that's how it stuck.
Yeah.
It just came out. And so we rode with it. And so that's how it came about.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So I know this is a crazy, because I see it all the time still. What's your opinion about the speed ladder?
Speed ladder. So the agility ladder, right?
Yeah. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. I'm one of these guys because I've been around long enough. I've seen everything come around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. I had a guy, Dr. Ed Thomas, much older now. He's brilliant. And he showed me one time, I was at his house in Iowa. I was doing some work with the military with him on speed. And he showed me a book that he had from like 1905 or something like that. And he goes, here, flip to this page. And there was an agility ladder. Okay, 1905. And he goes, when people tell you there's something new, he goes, don't believe it. Things have been around and they just come back around again and people put a new twist on it. So I am a fan of any tool if you understand how to use it. So I know the speed ladder or the agility ladder isn't designed to teach maximum sprint form. But to do balance work, stability work, quick hops like we talked about earlier, to break down the initial phases of cutting. Like I have a whole hop series that I do using the ladder that helps athletes warm up and prepare or come back from injury. So for those things, I think they're fantastic because I get to control their distance. That way they can never out-hop what I want them to hop. Mm-hmm. And so for that reason, I like them. But so many coaches say they're useless, you should never use them. But I'm like, they're not understanding it. They think they're designed for maximum speed. And I'm like, they're not even close to that. That's not what they're for. They are for other coordinative type drills that can help, especially for young kids. They're great to develop just footwork, just coordination.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, especially with the coordination. Because, again, like I'm sure it's changed where you were too, like physical education and recess and all that stuff, the amount that these kids are exposed to. I'm much younger than you. And I remember in elementary school, at least like an hour a day of recess, at least once or 2 days of PE. And it's, I think, significantly being cut out, which is unfortunate because it's like, these things are, you have PE teachers for what then?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Um,
That's a battle I've fought for a lot of years and continue to do because I was a phys ed teacher. My dad started teaching phys ed back in the 40s. My two brothers are retired phys ed, and they were ADs and then went into administration. They all coached like I did. And so it saddens. What saddens me, not only that it's being taken away, is that the powers to be can't recognize that physical education should probably be the first thing scheduled, then make out all the other classes, because physical education, actual physical education, not gym class, which people call it, it's physical education. I have a degree in phys ed, not in gym, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a very extensive degree and what I had to learn. And when student athletes learn to move or just move, and they learn motor skills, that now helps English and math and history and studying, and discipline goes down. We know this. This is not something we're going to guess anymore. We know this. It's been proven in too many schools that have actually, especially in Europe, have taken phys ed, put it as its primary thing, movement, and they see test scores going up, discipline going down, moods going up. But yet here in America, we got people that absolutely cannot figure it out, and that's why they shouldn't be in the positions they're in. It just saddens me. And Believe me, we could have a whole podcast on that.
I mean, believe me, it's mind blowing because, you know, I've seen and I've heard from kids that I've worked with, like I graduated high school like almost 15 years ago, but that physical education class, you know, was like obviously it was like one of my favorite class, but at the end of the day, like you learn so much. I mean, I took phys ed. I mean, when you're in high school here in Maryland, like you only take it like one semester.
Yeah.
And I took it every year. I mean, I don't really care. But it's just crazy because I feel like they've just sort of cut out certain activities too, because like certain kids aren't like able to do certain things. But it's like, okay, that's what the teacher's there for, to help them teach. It's not just to like, you know, go through the motions.
Yeah. I wish they would have did that with math and English, because there were certain things I couldn't do, but they didn't cut that out. They made me do it.
No, I agree with you. It's and it's unfortunate because, like you said, and I've seen it too. I've read, you know, I think it really affects a lot of kids, especially, you know, as they get older, and, you know, we have this, you know, health issues in this country, but it's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I mean, it sucks, but just got to figure it out, help the kids outside of school if necessary. So kind of like bring this to a close. What are some things that, I mean, if you had a conversation with a parent, an athlete, you know, some tips for kids that are, you know, whoever listens to this. I mean, I try to push this to a lot of people, friends, other coaches and things like that. You know, even athletes. I try to push my podcast because I try to get people on here to educate them. And that's the whole point of, you know, what I'm trying to do. You know, what are some things that you try to, you know, are important for their athletic development at the youth level to help them to get kind of where they want to be as, you know, a college athlete, pro, whatever?
Yeah. So I teach a lot about the 7 movement patterns. Okay. And I'll explain them really, really fast. But if I can get athletes, I don't care if I'm working with you know, I work with some of the Major League Baseball teams. If I'm working with them or if I'm working with a 5th grade class, doesn't matter. The 7 movement patterns, they have to be able to become really good at, because then as they get up to like your level and played college soccer, now you've got this foundation to use that in the sport of soccer, which will drive certain patterns for you. So they need to be able to sprint. They need to be able to accelerate. Those are 2 of the forward linear patterns. They need to be able to shuffle sideways. They need to be able to laterally run or crossover, right? So there's 4. They need to be able to jump different ways. They need to be able to backpedal, and they need to be able to hip turn, open their hips, and then either run, shuffle, or crossover backwards, right? If they can do those 7 patterns, that allows them to manipulate those to meet any sport demand. So whatever sport I'm playing, if I have to move on an angle or jump and then land on and move on an angle, or sprint forward, stop and go back, I have the prerequisites done. I'm really good at those. So right now, especially now, if parents are stuck, you know, maybe they live in the middle of a big city and they can't get to parks and they can't get out. If they can just get their kids doing those patterns somewhere, even if they go in the parking lot or whatever, get them doing those. Now they have a foundation of all the other potential patterns that they could have. Just like you and I would teach athletes the patterns of strength, right? Squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling, rotating, all those. Same thing with speed. If they can do those, it's amazing how they grow in aptitude of movement, and coordination grows. And then the world's wide open to them. Now it's just a matter of developing the skills, how they need them for a particular sport or 2 that they're playing, or hopefully more than that when they're young. But as they get older, they might specialize to go to college. They're going to already have that foundation. So I think those are the key things. Like we already said, if they did them every single day, just a couple reps of this one, couple reps of that one, every day, 15, 20 minutes, man, by the end of a month, they would be really, really good movers and feel much better too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's so true, especially because will help a lot of these kids with, especially with soccer, they're consistently doing the same thing over and over all day long, like pass, or whatever. So getting them kind of out of that same movements, all those same movements that they don't really focus on, would definitely help. I personally, because that's kind of something that I really preach on, is like injury prevention, just like throwing different things at them and getting their body to move differently. Because like when kids come to me and they're like, they're like, when I tell them to do something, or when we go through certain drill or exercise or movement, it's quite to me it's funny because it's like, you don't realize, like, especially when they're like marching and same side arm and leg are coming up and they're like, I'm like, yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah.
I was going to say, you're seeing the effects of what we just talked about. They're not getting it in phys ed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to teach all those locomotive skills in phys ed. They don't get it anymore. So now they come to you as almost their phys ed teacher because they're not getting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And that's true. And that's what I try to tell the parents too. It's like what they're being taught nowadays is very like low level. I mean, sometimes they don't even do anything because I've seen it. And it's unfortunate because like I know somebody that teaches in the county, and PE teacher, and it's like one of those things where it's like, it's like they just play games and they don't like break things down, and some kids don't even participate, and it's unfortunate. And then they go out and play their sport and they're constantly hurt. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Those movement patterns are really important. Hopefully it's something that they can, grasp and understand, especially sprinting. A lot of kids don't do that. It's a lot of like short stuff, like 3-4 yard stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to help them get faster, I guess.
That's right.
Or it's either short or it's like really, really long distance. There's no in between where you're working like hard. And I think one last thing to just kind of finish this up, it's like a lot of the kids don't understand rest.
No.
With sprinting.
You're right. It ends up a conditioning session versus a speed session. And that's so important because, again, when you're trying, because they've always been taught, whether it's mom or dad or their youth coach saying, go hard. They've never been, it's never been reinforced that rest is important. So go hard, but now rest, and then go hard again, and then rest. And then that's what allows you to change the nervous system and all the systems of the body, then recover, and then you can get faster. But if you're always going at full speed with very little rest, you can't maintain it. You end up running slower.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the key is they don't understand why. And then once they understand why, especially with recovering and being able to, repeat that same speed and power, over 3-4 reps, then they sort of get like, okay, I can see it. Cause like, if you're timing it, the same number is coming up every time versus it's taking longer because you turn it into a conditioning thing.
They do. Exactly.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate this. It's always good to talk and learn. Always. I learn something every time I have a conversation with somebody on here.
Yeah, that's great. I'm honored you asked me to do it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I just try to, put people on my podcast that I can, one, sort of learn from, but also take what they learn and try to educate the people around me. Because, I work around a lot of strength coaches. I'm sure a lot of them, but it's also good to just, get your different point of view on certain things. So.
Absolutely. That's right. It's all networking, and that's how we all learn. We figure out what other people are doing, and we look at it and say, how can that help me, and how can that work in my system of doing it? Because it's okay not to agree with everybody on what they do, but you can always learn something from someone, and that's what I try to do. So that's real smart of you. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. Cool. Well, thank you again. And maybe I'll see you sometime soon. You don't really do a lot of soccer stuff, but I do have a clinic, a virtual clinic. So if anybody in Florida, you know that has any association with soccer, we're doing a virtual clinic through NSCA next month.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, just email me the information and stuff, okay. And we'll share.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, if you know anybody around or that might be big coaches, whatever, past, we're just trying to bridge that gap with coaches, especially.
That's great.
So.
That's awesome. Well, good luck with that too, and thank you for having me on.
All right, thank you. See ya.
Yep. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Train to Perform with Julian Sisman. Learn how you can work with Julian in a personal training session, either online or in person, at prepareforperformance.com. And follow on social media for more tips on training, fitness, and sports performance. On Twitter @JSisman_PFP and Instagram @prepareforperformance.